All right, thank you for tuning in to Chompin at the Bit. This is episode 30. Now, this episode, we'll be taking a look at the Thursday night football matchup between the Giants, who are traveling to Philadelphia to face the Eagles. With that matchup, I'm going to go through, give you some key stats to, look forward to in that matchup. I'm also going to give you the key for each team in order to win the game. By the end of the episode, I will give you my prediction of who I think will win. I'm going to start the episode off the same way as I did the last episode, where, I kind of talk about a certain topic that's kind of a big deal in the sports world to start off each episode. So I will do that on this episode as well. So the Thursday night matchup kicks off week 7. And as I do every week, it's always the first of my weekly picks. So hopefully this one can kind of get me started on a good week. Because as you may remember, last episode I reviewed my week 6 picks and I did not have a good week. Went 2-4. So hoping to start off 1-0. So with that, the big news of the day was stemming from, Tua taking over for Ryan Fitzpatrick late in their game last week. The crowd loved it because they've wanted to see Tua all year. Tua came in, got his feet wet, made a couple of passes, and I don't know if you saw the image of him after the game where he went back out on the field. It sat down like around the 20-yard line or something. And the report is that he actually FaceTimed his parents because he was so excited for finally getting into an NFL game, which I thought was a great moment for him. But then the news came out today that apparently Ryan Fitzpatrick, the guy he took over for, was heartbroken by the decision to get benched for Tua. Now, during the game, we did see moments of the two of them, looking at the Microsoft Surface tablets. That's what they use on the sideline. And Fitzpatrick was pointing out, things in the defense to Tua and all that, mentoring him, which is his reason for being there. So he had to know that this day was going to come. But I do get it. He was having a good season. The team was actually performing better than some thought. They're 3-3 right now. Fitzpatrick, as we know, he's a guy who can go on a little run, win you some games. He's not a guy you want to use all season, but for a little stretch, he can play decent football for you. So maybe this was just Brian Flores looking at it and saying, okay, Fitzpatrick got us through the first 6 games. I was going to go to Tua anyway, and it just feels right now. Maybe that's what he was thinking. I don't know, but as I said last episode, I love the move because I know what Fitzpatrick is. I've seen him. He's played for every team in the NFC East except for the Patriots. But, he is what he is. He's a career backup. And what also helped was the Dolphins are on the bye this week. So, Tua getting some game action definitely does help because now they have some game tape on them. They can go into the bye week. They can, see where he's comfortable, maybe change the playbook a little bit to suit him. But then, coming out of the bye, they can have a game plan at least to, make sure can be as successful as possible. Now, they were playing the Jets last week, which was probably the perfect team to throw Tua out there against because, as we all know, the Jets stink. So there was no harm in putting them out there. But so, like I said, Fitzpatrick knew he was just warming the seat for Tua. I mean, I'm sure he was thinking the switch might have come when he was really struggling. And since he wasn't, I get he might have been caught off guard. But I feel like most of these decisions happen on the bye week anyway. It's just that, Flores gave him some minutes before to get some work in, so now they can go 100% during the bye. because as they come out of the bye, they have a pretty tough schedule, I guess, because they start with the Rams, then they have the Cardinals, the Chargers, who are kind of in the same situation as them, young quarterback trying to see what they have, then Broncos, Jets, Bengals. So there are some winnable games there, and they do finish the year with some tough games with the Chiefs, Patriots, the Raiders game that got rescheduled from last week because the Broncos game was rescheduled from the Patriots, and then the Broncos played the Dolphins next, but that game couldn't happen because that's when they actually played the Patriots. So I think it was the right move by Miami. As I've said a couple times already, love the move. I'm rooting for Tua. He was a guy that I watched when he was at Alabama, because all the SEC games come on down here, so I saw him play. You can tell that he has talent. Now, with the hip injury he suffered his last year at Alabama, I did wonder, like, mobility-wise, how would he look? Because I know he has the arm strength to be an NFL quarterback. So I'm hoping that he can, be a little bit like Kyler Murray, where, he can make the plays with his arm, but if the pocket collapses on him, I'm hoping he's not going to be afraid to take off and, run as long as he gets down, because he's not that big of a guy. But yeah, so the news today was Fitzpatrick's heartbroken. But I mean, Fitzpatrick's career record, he's 58, 86, and 1. So he's not setting the world on fire. Like I said, he's a guy who bounces around a lot, and with a record like that, he is a backup. And since Tua is the future of the team, once again, since the Dolphins aren't expecting to win a Super Bowl or anything this year, I understand why they let Fitzpatrick start the season, but you got to see what Tua has. That way you can go into the draft next year and actually start building your team around Tua. So with Tua's skill set, you'll probably run some run pass option plays in the playbook. So you're going to need kind of quick wide receivers on the outside, just in case, he pulls it back, running a quick slant, something like that. I mean, they have Devontae Parker, of course, but, you can never have enough weapons. They have a good tight end in Gesicki, who I'm sure they're going to want to build that relationship between Tua and him, because for a lot of young quarterbacks, having a good tight end is a great way to get them started being successful early. Now, part of the reason why I did want to talk about this at the top was I saw Brandon Stokely, who's a former wide receiver in the NFL with the Colts and the Broncos. He kind of followed Peyton Manning in his career. He came out and said that the players should feel like they've been lied to, because making this move shows that the team isn't about winning. And I thought that comment was probably the worst thing I heard about this, because if you're a player down there, you already know that you're in a rebuilding project. So Fitzpatrick isn't a young guy, so he's not going to be the quarterback going forward. So I don't understand where the deception is in any of this. The players aren't blind. They saw that they drafted Tua in the top 10 of the draft. You don't draft quarterbacks up that high to make them sit forever. Now, some of them were thinking maybe they wouldn't see Tua until next year. Fine, whatever. But I don't understand where the lying happened in this situation. It's not like they, had, I'm trying to think of who would fit this situation. I was about to say, even if you looked at the situation with Peyton Manning that Stokely was there for, where Manning was getting up there, and I think Manning was starting to have his injuries or whatever, they drafted Andrew Luck. And, so once they got Andrew Luck number 1, everybody knew at some point they'd have to make a decision on Peyton Manning. Now, some people say like Peyton Manning got pushed out the back door or whatever, sent out into free agency or whatever. But these players know when you take a quarterback high, whichever quarterback starts that season is on borrowed time. Because one, the fans want to see the young guy in there. Because when you take a quarterback that high, it's usually a big name guy that your fans have seen, Saturday after Saturday college football. Depending on the guy, probably saw them in the national championship game or something. So they're coming in already as a rock star. So yeah, Brandon Stokely, especially as a former player, I don't understand where he's coming up with, the players should feel deceived or anything like that, and that winning isn't important. Like, I'm sure Miami has seen Tua in practice for these first 6 weeks. I'm sure that they've seen something in him that lets them think, you know what, he's probably ready to go out there and we'll just see what happens. Yeah, he'll make mistakes. So will Fitzpatrick. That's Fitzpatrick's thing. Fitzpatrick will go out there. He'll give you like 3 touchdowns and a pick one game. And then the next game, he'll give you 0 touchdowns, 3-4 picks. So Flores and the coaching staff and all that, I congratulate you for making the move. That shows more to me that you're committed to, the long-term plan and actually building a winner by making this move now. Sticking with Fitzpatrick for the year just delays Tua's development. That's not what Flores was brought there for. So there we go. That's, just wanted to get that, off my chest and out of my head for now. But like I said, going to look at the Thursday Night Football matchup. So let's go ahead and dive deep into that. So we have the Giants at the Eagles. Not a sexy matchup on paper at all. The Giants are 0-5. The Eagles are 3-1. Yeah, they got a tie, which you don't see a tie every day in the NFL, but the Eagles have one. And the Eagles come to the matchup as a favorite, of course, mainly because they're at home. Because if you look at the teams, they've both been disappointing. Eagles more so than the Giants. The Eagles were expected to be, contending for the division. Oddly enough, as bad as the division is, they are still contending, but they're supposed to be contending and have a decent record. So with the Giants are rebuilding. They have their young quarterback, Daniel Jones, although depending on how this year goes, I'm sure there's going to be some talk. Do the Giants, pull what the Cardinals did a few years ago, where the Cardinals drafted Josh Rosen high, went through a year with him. He didn't perform well. And then they had another top pick, and Kyler Murray was coming out. They ended up taking Kyler Murray, then trading away Josh Rosen. So I think there's starting to be some chatter in New York that, Daniel Jones might not be the guy there. So this is a good opportunity for Daniel Jones, national TV, show what he's got, kind of silence some of that noise for a little bit, because it is a pivotal year in his development. You don't want to have an 0-16 type season on your resume. And with the quarterbacks coming out next year, with Tyler Lawrence and Justin Fields, Trey Lane, if the Giants do end up with a top pick, that is going to be a conversation that they're going to have internally. Well, I'm guessing Lawrence is going to go number 1. So if you don't have the number 1 pick, do we take Justin Fields and just kind of let him go through the Daniel Jones project, just reset, where you bring in Fields, he starts day 1, you try to grow with him for a couple of years or so. And then if you do that, then you got to move Daniel Jones, because you're not going to have Jones be a backup, because you could probably get something for him if you have a desperate team out there that needs a quarterback, which every year there's always teams that have to make a decision on either a veteran who's, on the end of the line, or like a young quarterback who's coming out to the end of their rookie contract, might not get picked up. Does that sound familiar, Chicago Bears fans? Trubisky. But so yeah, Giants have some questions to ask themselves. Philly, you have Carson Wentz, who was it up to a couple of years ago when Wentz was looking like an MVP candidate, but then he got hurt last game of the season. Nick Foles took over. Nick Foles took them to the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl. Wentz has not found that, MVP type level play since then. He's dealt with some injuries since then. He's coming, looking at this year, he's not effective. He has 8 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That's no good. Oh, and I didn't say for Daniel Jones, he has 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, so he's even worse. But both teams do have some injuries that they're dealing with, as well as personnel that's just not good enough. Because here's a stat you may not know, but both quarterbacks are actually the leading active rusher on their team as well. Now, looking at that is like no recipe for success. Now, the Eagles have Miles Sanders, who was having a great year, but he got hurt last week, so he's out for, the game tomorrow night. Well, Thursday night, because you probably will be listening to this on Thursday, so. But, yeah, so with Sanders out, Wentz is now the leading active rusher, but they do have Boston Scott, who is going to take up some. He's going to have to carry the load a little more, so we're going to have to see if he can handle that or not. For the Giants, Daniel Jones is their leading rusher. They haven't really been able to find anybody in the backfield, which is why they went out and got Devontae Freeman off the street a couple of weeks ago. So the Giants are going to hope that, Freeman can find some success. That way you can take some of the pressure off Daniel Jones. Maybe, play the time of possession type game. Limit the, dangerous downs you put Daniel Jones in, meaning like, second and long, third and long, where the defense is going to be keying in on the passing game. And when they do that, then that just opens up Daniel Jones to throwing interceptions, which neither team can handle too many turnovers because they're just not good enough to overcome that. But so some of the injuries that we're talking about here, the Eagles are missing, Malik Jackson, defensive tackle, Alshon Jeffrey, their weapon on the outside, or one of them. Miles Sanders, who I just said is their leading rusher. And then added to the injury report from last week was Zach Ertz, their star tight end. Although he's been having a tough season, seems like he and Wentz haven't been able to get on the same page. But, it's still a major injury for that team. The Giants don't actually have anybody seriously injured. They do have Steve Slayton, their wide receiver, who's questionable for the game. They have Sterling Shepard, who's questionable, who might play. So it'd be helpful for them if they have both guys, but if they have one, that should help a little bit as well. Looking at the numbers, the Eagles average about 24 points a game. That's, kind of middle of the road for today's NFL. They give up 29 a game, which is bottom third. But offensively, they do average like 360 yards a game. And they're pretty decent on the ground. I think out of the 360, it's like 120, 25 come on the ground. That's a decent running game. But like I said, Sanders is out. So some of that's gonna have to fall on Boston Scott, of course, and I think Wentz will have to make a couple of plays with his legs, I believe, in this game for the Eagles to do well. Whether that's running it in the red zone or picking up that key third down conversion to keep the drive going. Wentz is going to have that mentality that he may have to make some plays with his legs. Giants only average 17 points a game, so their offense is anemic, which is why Daniel Jones feels like he has to do everything, and he's not there in his development where he can carry a team like that, which is why he has 6 interceptions to only 3 touchdowns. And defensively, they give up 25 points a game, so the defense is a little better than the Eagles, but I think that might be more that the Eagles have played a tougher schedule so far than the Giants, because the Eagles have faced, like the Steelers. I think they faced the Chiefs already. Giants have played like Washington, Cowboys, and so the Giants, they gain less than 300 yards a game, so they're offensively challenged is what I'm saying, and defensively challenged. Both teams are defensively challenged. The Eagles aren't as anemic offensively, but they do have their struggles offensively. So for the Giants, the key is Daniel Jones has to do it all, even though he shouldn't have to. So hopefully with that, he can be effective through the air. They can establish Devontae Freeman in the running game to help Daniel Jones by incorporating some play action passes, or use Freeman in the pass protection to give Jones some more time, because with this Eagles defense, you give your quarterback time, you can find open receivers, and with that, hopefully Shepard is able to come back. I think between Shepard and Slayton, it seems like Shepard might be more likely to play, but he'll be coming back from a turf toe injury. You never know how that goes with wide receivers. So yeah, I mean, if they don't have both those guys, then their only other offensive weapon is, I guess, Evan Ingram, the tight end. He's more of a red zone target, so if he can't get to the red zone, then how much of a target can he become? But I think against the Eagles defense, Ingram could possibly have a big game. I mean, if I was the Eagles defense, I would probably key in on Ingram. And then, of course, if Shepard or Slayton play, you can kind of just double that guy and force Daniel Jones to go somewhere else. Now, on the other side, for the Eagles, Wentz needs to, play up to the potential that everybody saw in him from a few years ago. Like I said before, I think he's going to use his legs to make a couple of key plays in this game. Boston Scott needs to make up for Mike Sanders' absence. He's going to get a bulk of those carries. So if he can be effective, then that's going to help Philadelphia a long way. Now, the Eagles do actually have some good news coming to this game. They're supposed to get Deshaun Jackson back and their top lineman, Lane Johnson, back. So if they can get those two back, so Lane Johnson will help offensive line effectiveness. And then Deshaun Jackson, we all know he's a deep threat. Going against this Giants team, would not be surprised to see a big play or two out of Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson does like, these primetime games, as you've seen throughout his career, whether he was with the Eagles his first run or with like the Redskins, Washington football team at this point. And now even back with the Eagles, he's a guy who can make plays out on the edge as a wide receiver, the kick return game, or the punt return game as well. So there you are. That's kind of a little breakdown of the matchup. And the Eagles come into this, like I said, as a 3.5 point favorite. I feel like this is a no-brainer. I mean, I did say that for a couple of matchups last week, and I was dead wrong. But I think I have to go Eagles here. I just feel like they're the better of the bottom of the barrel teams in what is the NFC East. So I'm looking at Eagles probably winning this. I'll go 24-16 Eagles. Yeah. 24-16. Also, just a quick side note. Why is it that Washington isn't going to have a nickname going into next year, possibly? There's some report, only because I was talking about the NFC East, and I could have used this as my off-the-top topic, but it's bad enough that they're going through this year as the Washington football team. They threw out there some possible nicknames over the offseason. Some of them sounded pretty good. I think it was Red Hawks or something, and then I think Red Tails. I thought either one could have been a good substitute. They decided not to. But then for them to come out and say that they might be the football team again next year doesn't make any sense to me. But whatever. I guess we'll have to see if that comes true or not. So back to Thursday Night Football. Had just went off on a side note on that one. So Giants at Eagles. Give me the Eagles -3.5 at home to beat the Giants. And I said 24-16. Locking that in. So hopefully that can be my first win of the week. And so yeah, I mean, it's a good place to end the episode. And thank you for tuning in. Looking ahead as I always do. What's coming down the line next couple of episodes, we'll tune into the World Series. Game 2 is actually going on as I'm recording this. So were the Rays able to bounce back after losing Game 1? Or have they dropped into a 2-0 hole? I am going to talk about the NBA coaching carousel as some of the positions are actually being filled. So we'll take a look at who the teams picked, as well as what jobs are still open, and see if there's any rumors about who may get those jobs. We'll see what else. We'll talk college football. I do have to do that. I'm going to kind of give what I've seen so far in the season, mainly ACC, SEC stuff. Give my 4 playoff teams before the Big Ten gets started. Big Ten gets started this weekend, and the Big Ten is supposed to play into the playoff race. You have Ohio State. Ohio State's probably going to be the top of the class in the Big Ten, but you never know. Maybe Jim Harbaugh finally figures it out with Michigan. Let's see what else. Yeah, that's kind of what's coming in the week ahead. And I hope you tune in for all of that. This should all be good episodes. Give you some good information. So, like I said, thank you for tuning in. If you're new here, hope you like what you heard. You can like the show's Facebook page, Chomping at the Bit. You can follow the show on Twitter at Chompin Podcast. You can also go to my YouTube channel, Kyle Edwards, and all my episodes are there, so you can subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, you name it, it's out there. So this is your first episode. Like I said, definitely check out previous 29 and drop a comment of topics you want to hear, what you like about the show, what you don't like. It's all good to me. And also appreciate those of you who have been with me through these episodes, whether you listen to all of them or not. I mean, that's fine. But yeah, do appreciate you guys. And if you know somebody else who's a big sports fan, let them know. As I say, trying to grow this audience as big as we can, because I'm going to keep doing these episodes. So I'm not going anywhere. Why not get the audience bigger? But yeah, so definitely stay safe out there, and I will catch you next episode. All right.